All right, hello everybody. It's Trevel Henry and my colleague and good friend here, Mark Dawes. And just a couple of things before we get into today's webinar and we get into the subject areas. Firstly, this is the last webinar I'll be doing under the heading of MVC awareness. And for those clients who I've built up over the years, please be assured I'll still be there supporting you. It's just that to reinforce the announcement, and we'll put a link on here a little bit later on. Mark has very kindly invited me into the NFPS family. So I'll be taking over as one of the directors come the 1st of January. We're already doing a lot of good work in that direction. But as I say, come January 1st onwards, then i.e. NFPS will feature in the background banner with themselves from there. But please, please, please be assured, NVC clients, I will there to support you. Okay, Mark, you'd like to introduce yourself, please?
No, they should all know who I am by now.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
I've been around that long, mate. I'm that old.
At that note, mate, I'm going to come in now. Right? Just because you had a great post this morning, not that I'm jealous, from Mark Medford. Was it Medford, the guy's
Mark
name?
Woodford, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mark Medford themselves, mate. No, it doesn't mean, mate, this, at least in the UK, there's 60 odd million people. They don't all know you. So introduce yourself. Come on.
yeah. No, I mean, my name's Mark Dawes. I've been in the industry now for almost 30 years. I was the founder of NFPS Ltd, one of the co-founders when we started. I now run it with my wife, Deborah, and I. And we've had a great run. We've made some great friends. And we've really, really enjoyed, running the business and delivering the training and, meeting and making new friends all the time. But time has come for me to step back, and slow down. And so Trevel and Rab have kindly offered to take the helm, and I'm looking forward to that. They're two good guys. They've got some great new ideas, some great fresh ideas. Don't worry, it's not a radical change. Everything will still be running as it's always run. But I think these two guys are going to bring some fresh and exciting new concepts into NFPS and move it forward. So there's continuation all the way through. So yeah, that's and not long now, mate. It's a couple of weeks, isn't it?
It's a couple of weeks. It's here. When we think back now, the last kind of 10 weeks, 12 weeks, we've been talking about this and it's moved at a rapid pace and behind the scenes. And some people may recall I put up a post about, you've created a monster and itself. I've added one or two to that. But the creating the monster, let me reassure you, it's a good monster, as Jim Snipe, our colleague in Australia, mentioned within itself. And that is the fact that the amount of inquiries that are coming through, but importantly as well, we're able to address those inquiries, particularly from current clients who want to come back on a refresher course, and for people making new inquiries to us. So yeah, if you're unsure, not worry what we're talking about, again, we'll put a link up to the website so that you can see about the trainer courses we're offering during 2023 and just learn more about us, really. And before we specifically get right into the webinar, for those of you who haven't met me before, excuse me, just from a broader heading, as with Mark and our colleague Rob, aka Rab, in sales, we do a lot of work around expert witness support, reporting. So if you think about post training, whether it's allegations or issues around the appropriateness of the use of force, it's about policies and procedures, risk assessment, training needs analysis. So I and my colleagues within FPS, we can advise and support you in those areas. And I'm also a training consultant as well. But that's a little bit about me, about Mark, and hopefully you'll learn more about us for the next 30 minutes or so. But Mark, I'd just like us to start with, just from a broader perspective, that post you put up, I think it was yesterday, and the young lady had been in contact with you about the issue at school, and not so much specifically her issues, but some of the wider issues about how we may support her and people who come to us with, let's say, issues from a broader perspective.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things, and this is why I'm pleased that you and Rab are taking this on, because I know you can do this. One of the things that we've always said to people is, look, if you train with us, you become part of the family, and we'll be there for you, if you need us. To the extent that we get people that haven't trained with us come to us, like the lady the other day with the email. She'd obviously found me and been following me or read the stuff online. And she's obviously in a place of pain. You've only got to read her email to see that she's very worried, she's very scared. And, I think this is fundamentally what the business is about. We are a training provider. We deliver courses, we issue qualifications. But the real heart of the business is supporting and empowering it and developing people. Anyone can run a training course and issue a certificate. And when I first started, probably like yourself, you went on a course, they gave you the certificate, and you ask them a question, they would know you're trained now. off you go. We've built a whole support structure for people that come and train with us. If they need any help, if they need any advice, we're a phone call or an email away. And I know that's something that you and Rab are going to carry on doing, which I think is really important. But yeah, that lady the other day, it's not an uncommon thing for me to get emails like that. I get them regularly over 30 years. I don't know how many I've had, where people have reached out because, as in this case, she's losing her job over nothing more than putting her foot out to stop a child assaulting her that had a weapon, which is shocking, really. And where I've gone to people's assistance in the past, which has included going to meetings with in schools, the head teacher and the board of governors and with the union reps. And when you sit there and you say, well, actually, look, what they did was fine. And then you get but it's not an approved technique. So you then ask them the question, well, what is an approved technique? Who's approving what? And I think you put a post out about that, didn't you?
I put a post out yesterday evening.
Yeah. It's so true. Who's approving what? And how is that approval process structured? And they go, well, the training provider said you can only use these techniques. And you think, well, hang on a minute. It's only a manual of guidance. Any training, and I think this is a point that is a moot point, is that any training that anyone delivers, including us, is only structured in a way as it can be an entry level, if you like, or a baseline from where they develop further. It doesn't, take away an individual's rights to use reasonable force under the law. So we're training them to improve their knowledge and their competence and their skills, but hopefully developing them so they can actually think on their feet. So the way I look at it is you train people for what's foreseeable. You build in the resilience and the knowledge in there so they can deal with things that crop up that they couldn't have foreseen.
And I think, just picking up on that note, on that note there. So, one of the aspects we want to do, and you were alluding to it, we'll go into a bit more detail, from the moment they contact us or they feel confident enough to contact us, what we're trying to do is empower people. Yeah. And an analogy for that from a broader heading will bring it down a little bit. For example, I want to say, look, old school traffic light system of risk, red, amber, green. And we think about near-miss reporting, within itself, and that's a key area. We can have another discussion another day about that. But near-miss reporting, you said about foreseeable, and those issues that are unplanned, not there, unexpected. We want people, don't we, to feel confident enough so that when they emotionally feel concerned for their safety, then they're empowered to do something about it, whatever that means in the context of the situation. That's the broader heading where we're trying to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
How do we nail down into some of that, though? How do we nail down into some of that?
Well, let's look at this historically. And I know you've had the same experience I had. Is that there was always this mantra that came out from certain training providers that this is the program, and you cannot go off plot with the program. So if you use a technique that's not in the program, then you're not covered by the training course. And they would brainwash employers into this nonsense, So you get someone that gets a set of circumstances, and I'll give you one. Here's a classic. This is one I had to deal with. A member of staff, new in job, is working in a mental health unit, and there's a patient in there who actually has delusions. They actually believe they're a vampire. And this patient has been known to attack staff badly. They don't tell this new member of staff. He just told go supervise this patient in the washroom. So he's in there. The patient goes at him, is clawing at his face, trying to bite his neck and all sorts of stuff. So this person has no idea what to do. He's been on the entry-level breakaway course, but there's no breakaway technique that's going to work here. So he kicks the patient in the shin, and the patient falls on the floor, and he extracts himself from there and raises the alarm, and staff turn up. Well, the manager called the police. This is, honest to God, this is true. Manager called the police, and the police arrived. Said, I want that member of staff arrested. Now, he's had to have constructive surgery on his face for the damage that was done.
Wow.
She wants him arrested. And the police said, no, we'd have tasered him. We'd have tasered the patient. He's done nothing wrong. So I go to a meeting, and I'm sat there, and this manager's really upset. And I said, look, this is how it works. Yes, you've got your training program. That in utopia, in the ideal situation, they would only use those techniques. But this is quite extreme. What happens is quite extreme. And a kick in the shin is reasonable considering what could have happened had he not done it. And I always, because do you remember Professor Gary Slapper, Professor of Law?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, well, I was sort of liaising with him at the time. We became quite good friends. And I had to tell him about this, and I think I've got him on video talking about it, because the managers had written a memo, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. And she said, I'm going to issue this memo to staff. And what it said is that no one is allowed to kick a patient in the shins, and if they did, they would be, instantly suspended and investigated. But they can do something reasonable, like hit the patient over the head with a fire extinguisher. What the fuck? I did what you did now. I started laughing at the meeting. And she said, what are you laughing at? I said, that's ridiculous. I said, you want your staff to walk around with fire extinguishers attached to their belts?
Sorry.
I said, absolutely crazy. So we got that put to bed, and I think, going back to the point, the member of staff, was reinstated, no issues there. But this is where I think, because, I suppose it's an arrogant thing, but I think we're quite unique, where we're willing to go there and support people where other providers possibly won't, and that's something is priceless, and I've done this on numerous occasions. With care homes, I've been there. I've had to go and have meetings with CQC and put things to bed that they've come up with utter nonsense. And we had one gentleman turn up on a course. He was absolutely petrified, big man as well. And his local authority, he restrained a child, and his local authority referred it to someone, and social services got involved, and they were going to put him on a child protection list. And once you're on that thing, you're on that for life. Yeah. So I said, well, what's he charged with? And they said, well, he's charged with causing significant harm. So this is not a chargeable offence. And this is a social services lawyer. And he said, well, he caused significant harm to the child. I said, well, but it's not. I said, whether he did or whether he didn't, it's not the issue. I said, but you can't charge someone with significant harm. It's not an offence. It's a threshold criteria.
Define significance.
Yeah. And I printed the law out, and I showed him. I said, look, there it is. I said, and it only applies to the parent of a child under Section 47. And he went, oh. So I was that annoyed. I had John Stebbin with me at the time.
Yeah. And
I said, if you pursue this, we'll fund the legal defence for it, because this is outrageous. And they backed off.
Good.
And I just wonder how many people out there, like the lady who emailed me the other day, are finding themselves in these circumstances and don't know where to go. Because, I've been in court with a teacher, actually, there, and the school didn't turn up to support them.
Yeah.
And the training provider didn't turn up to support them. And I just found it shocking.
Well, I think, just picking up on that then, excuse me, and I just want to just go back a little bit of a pace, because that balance between the staff we're turning up on training programs or offering them advice, then linked to professionally challenging organizations. That lady there, she, going right back to the original point, she felt empowered enough to raise the point, to speak to you about it in writing, albeit in writing, because we know, we go back to our younger days, and we were chatting, weren't we, a little bit earlier. It doesn't matter that we were both from service backgrounds, etc. But the point is, back in the older days, if something didn't factually happen, who were you going to tell about it? Because nobody wanted to take it on board anyway.
Yeah.
That was one of the, so, we were so disempowered, it was frightening. But I think just that link to training before, we actually go into a little bit more about how we, on the team can professionally challenge organizations and or individuals, by the way, learning and development, training, learning and development, in a short period of time, we are not going to change people's behaviors. We may change some, we may tweak it slightly, but in the main, we're not going to do that. But what we want to do, don't we, link to the kind of professional duty of care, the legal implications around use of force, restraint, hands-on physical intervention, call it what we want, is that element of, and you touched on it before, methods and principles. If we're going to hold, touch people, whatever you want to call it, then you and I biomechanically, physically are different. So that initial off, if we're going to hold an arm, we're going to do it slightly differently. Why do people get so hung up on it must be done in a particular way? I'll stop banging the desk there. That's not very good, is it? We're supposed to be preventing that shit. We'll have to edit that bit out, maybe not.
You know the answer. You know the answer to that as well as I do. It's so that this is the classic. Does my thumb go behind or does my thumb go in front? I don't care.
Exactly. Thank you.
Have you isolated the arm? Yeah, well, that's fine. But should the thumb go? It doesn't matter. You isolated the arm. And I think when you dig back at this, and because it used to really, not concern me, but I used to think, well, why are people being so pedantic about this?
Well, you just remind me, sorry to cut it, honestly, because it's just in my head and before I forget. Remember, oh gosh, when we were introducing physical intervention training into the SIA, you have to remind me of 2010, pre-2010, something like that?
Well, about 2008, they started looking at it. It came in 2010, didn't it? September.
Yeah, so around it, but yeah, 2008 is a good period actually, because it would have been then because it was pre the introduction. And we were at the SIA with a group of people, and lots of us went up there as pockets of groups, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
so and I remember we were having this debate about, and again, you know, it was the days of it had to be broken down into a million component parts. You know, yeah, no, don't, yeah. But the point I'm coming to is that I remember saying to people, right, you come over to me, come over to the window, have a look outside. I don't know, we were above the first floor anyway, sincerely. Looked out, there's people walking up and down the street, and okay, I see people's quizzical faces. I said, look, the point is, those are representatives of the people we'll be training. Yeah, when people come into your training program, yeah, that's the people who'll be coming in. Yeah, the fit for purpose, the healthy, and the competent in their work. Yeah? So when they come into the workplace, we can't expect them to have the same level of skill, knowledge, understanding that we have as trainers themselves. You know, we're training. We used to use an analogy. We're training the twos on a level of 1 to 10. People have come in at twos, not a criticism of two. It's just a reference point. Yeah, if they've never done this before, how are we going to expect them to walk out the door having a very high skill level, learning and development? The development you and I know and everybody else knows. If the training stimulated you that much, you want to go away and learn more, don't you? That's the grip. That's the element of it.
It's all, yeah, there is that, but you've also got to accept that people already know stuff.
Yes.
You know, people know how to stand up, they know how to sit down, they know how to walk, they know how to grip. You know, so you don't have to reteach this. And when you talk about this, the techniques being broken down into their finite component parts, that's an old military thing. That comes from weapons handling. Yeah. But if you look at, you know, I've done a lot of NLP studying in the past and qualified in that area, and hypnotherapy and all the other stuff. And it's quite interesting. I'll tell you why in a minute. But when you get into the real building blocks of learning, there's 3 levels. There's confusion, so someone doesn't know what to expect. Yeah. Then you get knowledge, so you give them knowledge, and eventually they reach understanding.
Yes.
Now, if someone's already got some knowledge, so they know how to sit, they know how to stand, they know how to walk, but you break that down, you start to create confusion. You lose the knowledge. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. If I said to you now, teach someone how to shake a hand, teach someone how to do a handshake, how would you do it?
Just get them to shake hands, basically.
That's would you get to go do that? Yeah? You wouldn't go through, right, we're going to do physical intervention handshake training now. Make sure your feet are shoulder width apart. Position 1, step forward on your right foot, you know, angle at the feet of 15 degrees. Make sure your right front knees bent.
My giddy arm. Stance, movement. Think about movement, step and drag. You just explained it very well there. That's what
we do this on courses, you know, because like you say, the SA brought this thing in. I disagreed with it totally. I said, look, you're just going to confuse people. And we get people obviously come and train for us, train with other people. I'm not saying other training providers are bad or we're the best, but it's just different experiences. And they'll say, do you break the technique down? No. And then I actually demonstrate this handshake thing, and it's like light bulbs going off in the back of their head. But going back to a point you said earlier on, you know, I mean, you see that thing on the wall behind me there?
Yeah.
That's the Bill of Rights, 1688, 1689, right? I have that on the wall, and I look at it every day.
Right.
Because what I think is happening out there is there's too much. And I don't think regulations is a bad thing, but there's too much now. You know? And they're bringing out codes of practice, and they're bringing out, you know, certain standards, or, you know, a certification route, and you must comply with that if you want Ofsted or CQC or one of the regulators to, you know, not cause you a problem. Whatever happened to just complying with the law? Because the law will always take priority. But then, everyone, by the way, everyone, that's never been repealed.
No.
The Bill of Rights is still in place, and that's where the Human Rights Act came from. So everyone has rights in there. And one of the things is to be judged by a panel of your peers.
Yes.
Which is why, you know, I still do it, but in the early days, you say, look, you know, if you really want to prove a point here, if you want to discipline that person, take it to court. Let's have this judged by people that know the legal process. Let's have experts in there that are subject matter experts talking about this. Not you, no disrespect, head teacher that's never had to lay hands on someone, but you just think that what they did is wrong, or you social worker because in your opinion that's significant harm, which has got nothing to do with restraint. You go through into a court, you've got the right people with the right skills and the right knowledge, and a jury of your peers. If you go to Crown Court, of course, which is why a magistrate's court, you've got the option to ask for it to go to Crown.
Yeah.
Which is, again, something that I've said to people in the past. Don't ask for a magistrate, ask them to indict you to Crown if it's that serious. Because if you don't do this stuff, particularly when there's a vulnerable person involved, you could end up on a list for life, and that's your world over. And going back to that email that woman sent me,
yeah,
you said that she was empowered to do it. I think the poor lady was desperate. You could see it in what she'd written. And the difficult thing for me was I had to take the emotion out of it and objectively write the response. So I wasn't going to buy into the emotion there, not from an uncaring point of view. It's just the laws of dispassionate object. And I was saying, right, factually, this is what you can do, and go and do this. And she's come back to me, by the way, and she said she now got she's talking to a union.
Oh, brilliant!
She's insisted that she gets a lawyer, and now she's feeling empowered. So yeah, and I think that's something that is so important as a provider of services. If you're going to talk the talk, then back it up. Go and support them.
But I think it's important as well, because something you touched on a moment ago as well, and and we're talking about this lady here or supporting staff members, and quite rightly so, by the way. But something you alluded to there. The point is, we're going to give objective report, aren't we? Take the emotion out of it. So on occasions when people come to us, when just say they've used force, just as a heading, as professional people, I have the stronger view, and I'm a bit of a glass half full person, as you know. But as a professional person, we wouldn't have done it unless we felt there was a need to do so. That as a standalone doesn't make it right, because as we know, it's how it's viewed and judged by others. And some of that, without going off at a tangent about how they present the evidence. But sometimes, and you and I have done it, and we'll continue to do it. Sometimes we're having to let the individual know that actually, we're not quite in agreement with what you've done based on the rationale you're giving us. And the point I'm coming to, your point about take the emotion out of it and be objective. We're trying to give the correct information. There's so many people, unfortunately, don't they? If they're supporting an individual and that bias comes into it, and it remains objective.
If you get emotionally hooked into it, then the bias will automatically come out.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got to have this detached perspective. But let's be truthful about this. We're human beings. Everyone's got a bias about something.
Yeah, of course they have. Well, I was going to come to that. You beat me to the punch. Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is, you can have the best. You can deliver the best training course. You can do a training needs analysis. You can look at all the incident reporting and say, right, this is what that organisation needs. But like, in fact, a shout out for Paul Vicary in his book here. One of the things that he wrote in there, which took me straight back to being in the military, was no plan survives contact.
Remember that well.
You remember that? By the way, guys, shameless promotion here. Go and buy this book. It's absolutely brilliant.
Big up to Paul Vicary.
When I was reading this, and I came across that phrase, and he uses it many times in there. How true is that? No technique's going to go as per the manual. No technique's going to go as per the training session. Why? Everyone's different. They got different body mechanics. They got different aches and pains, carrying different injuries. Different experiences in life. So the thumb will go in front, the thumb will go behind. And I think this whole thing about being too technically precise is designed to protect the training provider.
Of course, it is all day long, without a doubt. It's that element of elitism, isn't it? We know more than you. We're going to keep you down there. We're going to metaphorically keep our feet on your heads. If you want to know more, we'll drip feed you more.
This is when I think, going back to the initial reasons that I'm so pleased that you and Rab are taking over, is I know you'll be there for people. That's the big thing for me. It's the people we train. We've got to be there for them. We've got to have that support. We've got to be good to our word. And I've said it all through. If you need me, I'll come. And I've been to court, I've been to tribunals, I've been to meetings, I've been to all sorts of stuff. And initially when you go to these things, you're uncomfortable with it because you're thinking, well, am I making an arse out of myself? But you very soon realise that if you just establish a baseline objective standard and you ask some very pertinent questions and you say, look, if you can't answer these when you go to court, you're not going to win this case. And your member of staff could take you to an industrial tribunal and it's going to cost you a shed load of stuff. But the thing is, why are people so caught up with keeping other people happy?
Right, okay.
it's like managers. Oh, we don't upset CQC. We don't upset Ofsted. And during the pandemic, this is a cracker. Someone contacted me and said, "Do you have a non-pain compliance technique to stop someone biting you?" And I went,
that was a serious question.
"Oh, yeah. I've actually got the email thread." And I went, "How serious is the bite?" And they said, "Oh, it's very serious. They're causing quite a lot of damage. So this is foreseeable."
Yeah.
So I replied back and I said, "Look, with the greatest of respect, we're in a pandemic here. The HSE have issued guidance on bloodborne viruses and diseases. Someone biting you and drawing blood, cross-contamination of bodily fluids. Now, I believe I read somewhere that there's more harmful bacteria in a human's mouth than there is in a dog's mouth. So when we bite, well, you're a medical guy. When a human being bites another human being, the chance of infection is huge. And now we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I said to her, I can't think of one. I said, you've got to get that person off you quickly. I said, so if you have to cause a bit of discomfort or pain, but it removes them off you, that's what you need to do. And they came back and they said, we can't do that because we'd lose our certification. Because the certification that we've got doesn't allow us to use a pain compliant technique. And they said the certification means a lot to us. And I got quite irritated by that. And I emailed back and I said, look, what should mean a lot to you should be the safety of your staff, and your service users, not the certification. And if the certification has put in a clause that you can't use a technique, I said, then that's wrong. Because if you do a risk assessment and part of your risk assessment says the control measure is to get that person off you and you may have to use a technique, a high-level technique is going to cause pain, and you're not doing that because of some certification clause, you're breaching health and safety. You're going to get yourself sued in a big way. Sorry, I'm going to let the dog out.
No worries.
You're going to get yourself sued. And they said, well, this is what they're saying. I said, well, I'll tell you what to do. Go back to this agency that's certificating you and ask them what non-pain compliant techniques they've got. And do you know what they said?
Go on.
They don't do techniques. They don't get involved with advising on techniques. It's not their area. So here's the perverse dichotomy. They're saying they can't do something, so they're advising they can't do something or they'd lose their certification. But when they go back to them and say, well, we need to do something, what have you got? They're saying, well, we can't advise you because we don't advise on techniques.
Yeah. Confused. Sorry, I'm confused.
But they're buying into this stuff. When you're thinking, what, wake up. For Christ's sake,
Emperor's New Clothes springs to mind.
It is. It's totally that. Because there's staff getting seriously bitten. That's the bottom line with this.
Serious, no. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't care whether it's a BTEC certificate, our qualification, someone else's qualification, but rip the damn thing up. Do what's right. And this is the other thing. Oh, you got me going now, mate. I'll tell you what.
All right, that's fine.
When we ask people, why do you come into this industry? What do they normally say?
Oh, right, yeah, because we want to be here to help and support people.
Yeah, I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. I want to help and support people. I want to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Then they sign up for a certification that's not allowing them to keep people safe.
Yeah.
So, truthfully, why have they actually got into this industry?
Right, and I think that certainly is one of the key elements of all of this, isn't it? Because even going right back to the programs, when we're delivering the programs, we're encouraging, inviting people, aren't they? If they disagree with what we say, they disagree with what's on the PowerPoint presentation slide, then professionally challenge us. Yeah, let's have that debate. Let's have that. But that's where it should start from. That's where it's. If you don't agree with it, then challenge us in the right way, and we'll have the discussion and debate. Because most things are open to interpretation, aren't they?
Well, I've seen you do it, and I've done it because we were both lucky enough to stand on the shoulders of giants like boatmen. Where you stand out the front and you go, right, this is really important. Don't believe a word I say. If you got any questions, ask me. If you don't believe what I'm saying is right, challenge me.
Yeah.
Because all too often, certain trainers and training providers won't allow that.
Exactly.
Sorry, if you get angry then.
Yes, twice though. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, you challenge them, and they go, "Well, you know, I'm the trainer. I know best." Yeah, you're a trainer, but remember that confusion, knowledge, and understanding.
Yes.
Right? They're stuck at the knowledge base, so they've
Mhm.
learned some stuff, but they don't really understand it.
Yeah.
You know, when you get to the level of understanding, you have to transcend knowledge because knowledge is not understanding. And interestingly, you know, I read a lot of stuff on meditation and mindfulness,
Yes.
things like that. I was reading something this week. I read every morning, and they said if you really want to transcend, you know, your limitations, you've got to let go of knowledge, and it's so true.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You know, so people go there and they I've seen it on courses. They go on a meditation course and they're studying meditation, and they say to me, "I can't empty my mind." Of course, you can't empty your mind. You're thinking too much. Yeah. They go, "Yeah, but you know, I've studied this and I've studied that." Right. Well, let go of the knowledge. Just do the damn thing. And that's the key thing with meditation, with mindfulness, with restraint, with self-defense. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do in life, just do it. You know, don't overstudy. I mean, come on, face it. I mean, you know, you and I know some seriously intelligent people, and they're broke.
Seriously. Oh, yeah. Gosh. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Not just financially.
Yeah.
They're broke ethically, morally, spiritually, and in their relationships. Why? Because they've invested all that time into knowledge, but don't have the understanding.
Yeah.
You know, that's a critical part. And what we've always done is push people through, push them up to the understanding bit. Always, you know, to you know, I call it training them from the inside out. If you train people from the outside in, you teach them a series of techniques and technical moves. That's outside in stuff.
Yeah.
You get inside people, you train them from the inside out. You change the way they start to think. You change the way they believe in themselves. You know, because and I mentioned this earlier on about, you know, NLP, EFT, hypnosis, and everything else. The reason I studied that stuff was to help people that came on courses who were worried.
Okay. Right.
They used to sit on courses, and I mean, how many people do you know that come on a course and they've already got, you know, I'm going to fail this in their head?
Yeah. 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 Far more still care to realize.
So you sit there and have a chat with them. You go, "Oh, there's nothing to worry about," but you're doing that from a knowledge base.
Yeah.
And they go, "Well, I'm still worried," and I couldn't get through that. So I remember when I went to enroll on a cognitive hypnotherapy course, the guy said, "Why do you want to be a hypnotherapist?" I said, "I don't." He said, "Well, it's a 10-month course." I went, "Yeah, I just need to learn this stuff so I can help people in what I do, which is restraint." And he said, "So you don't want to be a therapist?" I went, "No, not really." But learning that stuff and the other stuff, I mean, I used to have a queue sometimes on a course of people.
Right. Okay.
Who, yeah, you know, and the trainers didn't help. They used to say, "Oh, if you're worried about this, go and see Mark Dawes at the place." I couldn't get a cup of tea, but I would take them, you know, into a room or somewhere and do an intervention with them. And the thing about NLP that I love about NLP is you can cure a phobia in minutes. You know,
right.
Literally. I mean, I've had people come in that have got exam worry, fear of flying. I had one person come on a course, had fear of flying. We got rid of that in 20 minutes. I remember someone wanted to stop smoking. It's not my real area, but I helped them. And that again was 15, 20 minutes, stopped them smoking. And that's on the sort of more practical side. But outside of the restraint side, I've gone and helped people that were suicidal. You know, and they've had professional counselling from one guy from Harley Street went down there. "I can fix you." He didn't, and they were going to commit suicide. And I got a phone call and they said, "Look, could you go and have a look?" I said, "I'll go." So I went along, and you know, I managed to work with this young man, and that was resolved. Now, it's not to say that I'm great at what I do, but the point is we should all be striving to look for associated lifelong learning skills outside of the core stuff we do, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings.
No, I think, you know, and ultimately that, and I think, you know, probably just before we kind of look to bring things to a close, because we've been going about half an hour now, something like that themselves. And I think, you know, I'll just ask you to have a think of kind of, I'm going to say one thing you'd probably recommend, and I appreciate it's a broad heading in itself, but just before you give one thing you might recommend people maybe need to know and or do. I mean, certainly now you've heard us, you know, talking about a lot of issues here about wanting to empower people, you know, that importance about being able to speak up so that you feel that you can do your job to the best satisfaction, challenge things where you think they're not going well for you or they're not right in themselves from there. Please feel free to contact me, Mark, or Robert themselves. So if we can help and advise you, support you in any way or anything you've heard here, that you professionally disagree with us, then please get in touch with us and we'll have that discussion. We're happy to have that debate with you, with themselves. But, you before we finish, then, let's say for those who haven't met me before, I'm Trevel. 1st of December, along with Rab and Mark will still be there. I'll be part of the NFPS family. So, please, hopefully you've enjoyed what you've heard here. Mark, one nugget to take away?
Yeah, 1st of December's gone. 1st of January, Trev.
I was thinking about December next year. I don't know. Definitely edit that out.
No, I think one nugget to take away, going back to the beginning, really, is if you need help, if you're just a chat, reach out. I mean, you see it all over social media. My door's open. If someone who cares will share this post, and that's great. I get that. But genuinely, if you're in a situation and you're worried about what to do, just reach out. Whether you've trained us or whether you haven't, like the lady who got in touch with me, it doesn't matter. This is what we've committed our lives to. It's what we do for a living. So I'm quite happy to respond to emails. I'm sure I know Trevel is as well. Because that's part of the sort of mission and the value base we have. And if whether it's you're inquiring about a course, if you reach out to us, we'll even tell you whether or not the course is the right fit for you. And the reason is I'm not going to missell you something, and I know the guys won't either. There's no point in flogging you something just to make a few shekels to have someone that's unhappy. I'd rather say to you, don't do it. And I get people ring me up. I mean, I don't do close protection training, but I've had people that ring up about close protection training, and they say, my son wants to do close protection training. Can you have a chat with him? And a few minutes into the chat, you realise that this poor lad who's going to spend a shed load of money to do a 2-3 week course, whatever it is now, is going to end up working as a static security guard or a door supervisor if he goes down that route. So I'll advise him. And with other people, coming out of the military, probably a good thing to do. So we're going to tell you the truth, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. But it's what I like. I think as I step down and prepare to step down now, I think what's very humbling is some of the messages I'm getting sent. I've got a letter here from someone that wrote to me, landed on my desk yesterday. Just really, reaching out and saying thank you. And I put a video up that Mark Medford sent me. I've known Mark for about 20 years. And that's what makes it worthwhile. It's helping people become the best version of themselves they can. And whether we use restraint training or self-defense training or handcuff training as a vehicle for that, or as a starting block, that's just a start. Once you're in that relationship with us as a business, we're there for you 24/7, and we're there to help you all the time.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And I think on that note, then, before we say cheerio, themselves, and please let us know your comments, let us know your thoughts about the webinar, anything you'd like us to speak about going forward. Again, please drop us a line, let us, we'll introduce that going forward on other webinars we'll be doing. But on that note, it's goodbye from him and it's good night from me, and we'll catch you soon. All right, take care.
All right, mate, take it easy. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.